Dallas Races Net, first and third Sunday, 8 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, SkyNet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of SkyNet, right?
That is correct, sir.
SkyNet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. SkyNet? This is KF5PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. SkyNet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 MHz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC Dash R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org, look for tonight's announcement, and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we will continue to do that too, over air and Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You do not need to be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, recent astronomical discoveries, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via w5fc.org. Let me go over to that list. We have KE5ICX, Tom in Corpus Christi on All-Star. K5MCD, Cody in Dallas over Air Radio. W5BLT, Bill in Garland over Air Radio. N5BB, Bill in Irving over Air Radio. KF5JHA, Chaz and No Bob the Cat. Hope Bob's okay. And beautiful downtown Lockburn on online Echolink. NT5TM, Tony in Bird City over Air Radio. WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas, online Echolink. N5LIG, Dale, Little Elm over Air Radio. And AA5AH, Robert in Richardson over Air Radio. And I, of course, am KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. All right, welcome to those who have checked in using the hot link over on the club website. Now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time. So please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from this evening. Yeah, I'm not hearing any short time, so we'll go ahead and move over to general check-ins. Same request. If you will please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf Uniform CF Gus, far northeast Dallas.
Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie, Brian in Roanoke.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo 5, Kilo Oscar Bravo, K5, KO, Philadelphia, Bill Point.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James and Carrollton.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Foxtrot Romeo, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
All right, let me go ahead and recognize those. W5GUS, Gus, far northeast Dallas. Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike Charlie DMC, Brian in Roanoke. K5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch. The next one I could not get anything on. It was all static to me. So if that person who checked in after ZBL would check in again, I would appreciate it. KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton, and KG5 UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch. Are there any more check-ins? Please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Oscar Bravo, K5, KO,
I picked up a 5 Oscar Bravo, and that was it. Is there anyone else that's reading him clear that could relay the information to me?
This is KG5 UFR, relaying that the call calling in is K5 KOB, Kilo 5, Kilo Oscar Bravo. That's going to be Philip at Wells Point.
Let me make sure I got that. So that's K5KOB, Philip in Wills Point. Did I get that information correct?
K5 KOB, Roger.
Thank you very much. I heard you that time. There was still some crackle there, but that was much more audible. And station relaying, if you could give me your call sign one more time just to make sure I've got you checked in, sir.
Sure thing. The call here is Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Foxtrot Romeo, KG5, UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
Excellent. Thank you, Jacob. All right. Do we have any other general check-ins for this evening? If so, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. Okay, not hearing any, so let's move over to Echolink check-ins. If there's anyone that is on Echolink that has not checked in yet, either through the hotlink sheet or over voice, I will give you some extra time to check in. Echolink check-ins only at this time. Okay, I think everyone over there except for Jimmy, KD5LQD, I've got you down on Echolink. Now let's open it up to have an open round check-in. Anyone who'd like to check in can check in now, any mode. Just please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
This is Alpha India 5 Quebec Echo, Bob in downtown Dallas.
All right, copy that. AI5QE, Bob in downtown Dallas. Are there any other check-ins? Last call for check-ins at this time.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha. Just wanted to check my Echolink connection.
KF5JHA, reading you loud and clear. Sounds crystal clear. So you've got a very good connection there. All right, let's go ahead and get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
And T5TM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Billy. Just a few. Tonight's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on The Black Hole from 1979. It was the first ever PG Disney movie. Well, I think they'd released a couple, but this was the first one they'd made rather than buying from another company. I don't know what PG stands for in this case. Pretty heavy gravity? Pretty, I don't know, gravitational? Anyway, The Black Hole tonight, 10:30, 10:35-ish, after this net. Don't forget we have GeekNet this Monday at 7. Anything geeky is welcome. There's been some really interesting moth activity in our neighborhood. I might talk about that a little bit. And don't forget we have a couple of things coming up aside from the June DARC meeting, which will be, of course, all things Field Day. We also have the DFW Ham Expo coming up on June 6th and 7th, and the ARRL June VHF contest on June 14th, 15th, and 16th. So whether you want to go shopping, get on the air, or, I don't know, praise or insult this movie, we can have the opportunity ready for you. Join us. Anyway, NT5TM, back to net.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tony. And I see that Virginia NV5F has checked in over there on the hot link sheet. So welcome, Virginia. Are there any other announcements? If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing any, so I'll go ahead with some announcements. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you can check into the National AMSAT Net, learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT Net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and you registered. You can also find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others checked in. AMSAT-Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tuesdays, Tom N5HYP is net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so there's no AMSAT East on that Tuesday night. Dallas AMSAT-Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts a number of nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Check the W5FC.org website. This coming Monday will be GeekNet, Geek Beyond Ham Radio. This Monday, Geek Out Beyond Ham Radio at 7 o'clock. We'll expand topics to include computers, science, space, news of the weird, and much more. No topic is off limits, just as long as it's geeky. Tony NT5TM is net control. And if there's a fifth week, there's a surprise net. If we told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. Over-air participation is encouraged. Sometimes we even offer a real prize. Otherwise, show your fellow hams your technical, social, and pop culture knowledge and creativity. Tony NT5TM is net control. Saturdays are the night of nets, where we keep the airwaves buzzing until midnight. Here's the lineup. TechNet from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Q&A on all things ham radio related. There's also a swap meet, Rookie's Corner, news and information, and ham radio events and contests, alternating net control each week. And SkyNet from 9 to 10:30. Astronomy, space, and space exploration are the topics. Also, news and information, satellite passes, and the constellation of the week. Join this popular net about ham's second most favorite hobby, astronomy, alternating net controls. Afterglow Movie Net from 10:30 to midnight. Will it be a hit or the dreaded miss? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You make the call. More in a moment. First and third Sundays, Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. What's going on in your ham world? Tell us. Also learn about the club that maintains this popular repeater, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Club news and information, events, activities, including club meetings, lecture and lab, public service events, contests, and just general discussion. Everyone can check into this net. And daily is the ARRL Net National Traffic System Training Net every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Learn how message traffic is handled on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in, as this is a training net. The MTS also conducts an evening net on the Irving Whiskey Alpha 5 Charlie Kilo Foxtrot repeater, 146.72 megahertz at 9:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as promised, tonight's Afterglow info. So at this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you will give us tonight's Afterglow info from KF5 PDS.
All right, thank you, Billy. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Is my signal okay? I didn't have a chance to check it. I made a change on the radio, and I hope it was for the better.
Yeah, I hear you just fine, Tom. The volume on my end's a little low, but you're totally readable. It's very clear connection.
All right, thank you. My apologies to everyone. I usually check ahead of time, and I just ran out of time. So tonight's Afterglow info is as follows. The USS Palomino four-way flashers were still flashing, but the crash with the Nostromo showed a huge dent on the mining ship was noticeable when the smaller spaceship inadvertently backed into the bigger, more important vehicle. Captain David Holland apologized and handed the other commander his interstellar phone number and insurance paperwork. Hopefully they wouldn't notice that his number had been disconnected when the insurance agent tried to call. But before they could complete exchanging their accident information, a third spaceship, the Cygnus, crunched the Palomino. Its commander was busy black hole rest stop, exit 305. Join us for Disney's first PG-rated movie, which you heard about earlier, The Black Hole from 1979, tonight at 10:30 p.m. There's a live link to the free movie is listed in the SkyNet posting tonight at W5FC.org. In case you want to do a quick review, you've got the chance to do it, but not for very long. Back to you, Billy, KE5ICX.
Great, thank you, Tom. This is KFI-PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. And you can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, W5FC.org. Let's see if we've got anyone new on the hot link sheet. I don't see anyone new that's checked in. I got Virginia, that was the last one. I'll now take additional voice check-ins, so if you'll please come with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from this evening, if you have not checked in yet.
This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WD4MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power. This is Kilo Juliet 5 Juliet Uniform Quebec Q in Frisco.
All right, let's welcome WD4MFI Ted, Dallas, low power. And that last one from Frisco, I caught Uniform Quebec, but that was it. There was a lot of static. If you could come again with your call sign and name, let me see if I can get that again.
This is Kilo Juliet 5 Juliet Uniform Quebec Q in Frisco.
Okay, that time I got Kilo Juliet 5 Juliet Uniform Quebec Q in Frisco. Is that correct, sir?
That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and welcome to SkyNet. All right, next up is Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours to give us information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas from KFI-PDS.
Thank you, Billy. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA, coming to you from the beautiful downtown Lockbourne, Ohio, rather than in the DFW area. On May the 23rd, that was last night, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas had a meeting. The meeting was held at 7:30 p.m. At the University of Texas at Dallas, and it was also held on Zoom. The featured speaker was Jerry Gardner. His topic was about the former 3RF observing site near Crowell, Texas, which is now named Three Rivers Ranch and is run by Texas Tech. I missed the meeting. I hope they did the recording because I'd like to listen to see what happened. On Saturday night, public observing sessions continue. SkyNet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas observing sessions. Now, on the fourth Saturday of the month, there is currently no scheduled stargazing. Check the TASS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KF5JHA. Back to our net control. Billy, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Bill, N5BB. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is N5BB. I happen to be the National Space Society North Texas Chapter Vice President and Membership Directory. My email address is space@byrom.net. That's SPACE@BYROM.net. I have reorganized this summary so it goes sequentially in by date to make it less confusing. So the early things are mentioned first. The things that occur later are mentioned at the end. So the National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the development and creation of a spacefaring civilization. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. Last Saturday, May 17th, 3 National Space Society North Texas chapter members participated with a space information table at the Haltom City Library Free for All outdoor event. We participate in quite a few events of these types every year at libraries, schools, and museums. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. The location is Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West 635, Irving, Texas 75063. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. 7 people attended the April Space Rendezvous event. The next Space Rendezvous will be held this coming Friday, May the 30th. And this is in 5BB. This is the middle of SkyNet. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. The next chapter meeting will be held on Sunday afternoon, June 8th. Our presentation topic for this meeting is space welding by UT Dallas Professor Dr. Wei Li. Our meetings are also available virtually using WebEx. Contact Bill in 5BB if you'd like to attend. The big event every year for the National Space Society is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. The location changes to around the country every year. A couple of years ago, it was in Frisco, suburb of Dallas. The next ISDC will be held in Orlando, Florida, next month, on June the 19th through the 22nd, 2025. If you want to attend, there's still time to sign up. On Saturday, July 19, the National Space Society North Texas chapter will participate in the Moon Day event at the Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas. Moon Day is the celebration of the anniversary of humans first landing on the moon in July of 1969. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill at November 5 Bravo Bravo at his QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. Back to net. Thank you, Billy. This is in 5BB clear.
Great, thank you very much, Bill. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. The net recognizes Clay over there on Echolink, November 5, Oscar Foxtrot. Welcome, Clay. And let me see if we have any check-ins on the hotlink sheet. I don't see any new ones. All right, next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. Tonight's article is entitled Cosmic Joust. Astronomers observe pair of galaxies in deep space battle. Astronomers have witnessed for the first time a violent cosmic collision in which one galaxy pierces another with intense radiation. Their results, published today in Nature, show that this radiation dampens the wounded galaxy's ability to form new stars. The study combined observations from both the European Southern Observatory's Very Large Telescope, that's ESO's VLT, and the Atacama Large Millimeter Submillimeter Array, ALMA, revealing all the gory details of this galactic battle. In the distant depths of the universe, two galaxies are locked in a thrilling war. Over and over, they charge towards each other at speeds of 500 kilometers per second on a violent collision course, only to land a glancing blow before retreating and winding up for another round. We hence call this system the cosmic joust, says study co-lead Pasquier Notre Dame, a researcher at the Institut d'Astrophysique de Paris, France, and the French-Chilean Laboratory for Astronomy in Chile, drawing a comparison to the medieval sport. But these galactic knights aren't exactly chivalrous, and one has a very unfair advantage. It uses a quasar to pierce its opponent with a spear of radiation. Quasars are the bright cores of some distant galaxies that are powered by supermassive black holes, releasing huge amounts of radiation. Both quasars and galaxy mergers used to be far more common, appearing more frequently in the universe's first few billion years. So to observe them, astronomers peer into the distant past and powerful telescopes. The light from this cosmic joust has taken over 11 billion years to reach us, so we see it as it was when the universe was only 18% of its current age. Let me reset. Here we see for the first time the effect of a quasar's radiation directly on the internal structure of the gas in an otherwise regular galaxy, explains study co-lead Sergei Balashev, who is a researcher at the Loft Institute in St. Petersburg, Russia. The new observations indicate that radiation released by the quasar disrupt the clouds of gas and dust in the regular galaxy, leaving only the smallest, densest regions behind. These regions are likely too small to be capable of star formation, leaving the wounded galaxy with fewer stellar nurseries and a dramatic transformation. But this galactic victim isn't all that is being transformed. Balashev says these mergers are thought to bring huge amounts of gas to supermassive black holes residing in galaxy centers. In the cosmic joust, new reserves of fuel are brought within reach of the black hole powering the quasar. As the black hole feeds, the quasar can continue its damaging attack. The study was conducted using ALMA and the X-Shooter instrument on ESO's VLT, both located in Chile's Atacama Desert. ALMA's high resolution helped the astronomers clearly distinguish the two merging galaxies, which are so close together that they look like a single object in previous observations. With X-Shooter, researchers analyzed the quasar's light as it passed through the regular galaxy. This allowed the team to study how this galaxy suffered from the quasar's radiation in its cosmic flight. Observations with larger, more powerful telescopes could reveal more about collisions like this. As Nostradamus says, a telescope like ESO's extremely large telescope will certainly allow us to push forward a deeper study of this and other systems to better understand the evolution of quasars and their effect on host and nearby galaxies. That's the end. This is from ScienceDaily.com. And back to net, WB5OZL.
Great, thanks very much, Brenda. This is KF5PDS, your ability, your net control for the session of the DARC SkyNet. All right, next up is discussion topic of the evening. I've been seeing some things float across the feeds about Planet 9, and so I went out and did a little search and found an article from NASA entitled, "Is Planet 9 Real?" So let me go to that article. That is on science.nasa.gov. Is Planet 9 real? So in January 2016, California Institute of Technology Caltech astronomers Konstantin Batygin and Mike Brown announced research that provided evidence for a planet about 1.5 times the size of Earth in the outer solar system. The existence of this world remains theoretical at this point. Batygin and Brown did not actually observe a planet. This hypothetical Neptune-sized planet would circle our sun on a highly elongated path far beyond Pluto. It could have a mass of about 5 to 10 times that of Earth and orbit about 20 to 30 times farther from the sun on average than Neptune. It would take between 10,000 and 20,000 Earth years to make one full orbit around the sun. If it exists, this planet could help explain the unique orbits of some smaller objects in the distant Kuiper Belt, a region of icy debris that extends far beyond the orbit of Neptune. The existence of this far-off world rests on gravitational patterns in the outer solar system, and again, the planet remains theoretical at this point. Batygin and Brown nicknamed the hypothetical object Planet 9. However, the notion of an undiscovered large planet in the realm beyond Neptune has been investigated multiple times in the past century based on its distinct lines of evidence. Sometimes it's also referred to as Planet X. NASA does not take a position on the name used. The information on this page includes both names in the interest of helping the public to find it via online search. So when was Planet 9 discovered? To be clear, Planet 9 has not yet been discovered, and there is debate in the scientific community about whether it exists. If the planet is found, what will it be called? As mentioned above, Batygin and Brown nicknamed their predicted object Planet 9, but the formal naming rights of an object go to the person who actually discovers it. If the predicted world is found, the name must be approved by the International Astronomical Union. Planets are traditionally named for Roman mythological and Roman and Greek gods. Planet X, Planet 9, and the Pluto connection. The names Planet X and Planet 9 are sometimes used interchangeably, but the term Planet X has been used for more than a century. Planet 9, meanwhile, refers to the prediction of a specific hypothesis published in 2016. The name Planet X was originally used for a hypothesis developed by astronomer Percival Lowell in 1915 to explain what might be perturbing the orbit of Uranus. The X is the letter X, not the Roman numeral for 10. Astronomers eventually determined that the perturbations to Uranus' orbit were errors in measurement and were not real. But the search for a giant distant planet that Lowell kicked off led indirectly to the discovery of Pluto in 1930. Pluto was considered the 9th major planet in our solar system until the definition of planet was changed by the International Astronomical Union, IAU, in 2016. This new definition reclassified Pluto as a dwarf planet. Even before the IAU action, back when it was first discovered, it was thought that Pluto was as massive as Earth. As time went on and more was learned about Pluto, scientists corrected the mistake. Because Pluto was now labeled a dwarf planet and no longer considered our solar system's 9th planet, Caltech astronomers referred to their hypothesis planet as Planet 9 when they announced it in 2016. What is the evidence for this planet? Astronomers studying the Kuiper Belt have noticed some of the dwarf planets and other small icy objects in that region tend to follow orbits that cluster together. By analyzing these orbits, the Caltech team predicted the possibility that a large, previously undiscovered planet may be hiding far beyond Pluto. They proposed that gravitational interactions with a potential giant planet might explain the unusual orbits of those Kuiper objects. How would the discovery of this planet impact our understanding of the solar system? It could help explain, number one, why long-period objects in the Kuiper Belt are, on average, tilted by about 20 degrees with respect to the plane within which the planets orbit the Sun. Number two, why these long-period orbits cluster in their orientations. Number three, why the solar system hosts a distant population of highly inclined trans-Neptunian bodies. Number four, the existence of objects that reside between the giant planets and orbit the Sun in a retrograde direction. And number five, the persistence of long-period Kuiper Belt objects whose orbits cross the orbit of Neptune. It could also make our solar system seem a little more quote-unquote normal. Surveys of planets around other stars in our galaxy have found the most common types to be quote-unquote super-Earths and their cousins, bigger than the Earth but smaller than Neptune. Yet none of this kind exists in our solar system. Planet 9 would help fill that gap. So what's next in the search for Planet X or Planet 9? Some of the world's most powerful telescopes, including the Hawaii-based Keck and Subaru telescopes, are searching for the planet. A NASA-funded citizen science project called Backyard World's Planet 9 encourages the public to help search using images captured by NASA's Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer, or WISE, mission. WISE surveyed the full sky in 4 infrared wavelength bands. WISE was renamed and repurposed as NEO-WISE in 2013 to hunt for near-Earth asteroids and comets. The mission ended on July 31st, 2024. A new observatory also may help in the hunt for Planet 9. The Rubin Observatory on top of Cerro Pachon, a mountain in northern Chile. The observatory is expected to begin operations in 2025. It will conduct a 10-year survey of the southern hemisphere sky to help answer some astronomers' biggest questions about the universe. The observatory will search for more Kuiper Belt objects. If the orbits of these objects are systematically aligned with each other, it may give more evidence for the existence of Planet 9, or at least help astronomers know where to search for it. Another possibility is that Planet 9 does not exist at all. Some researchers suggest the unusual orbit of those Kuiper Belt objects can be explained by their random distribution. So again, there is information about Planet 9 from science.nasa.gov. This is KFI-PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. Is anyone with any comments or questions about tonight's topic? If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing any. Don't see anyone else checked in on the hot link sheet. Is there anyone out there that would like to check in this evening before we move on to our next segment? If so, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from.
Alpha Bravo 5 Delta Mike, Dustin in Dallas.
Alpha Bravo 5 Delta Mike, Dustin in Dallas. Welcome to this evening's net. Is there anyone else out there that would like to check? All right, not hearing anyone else, so at this time I will turn the net to Chaz for What's Up. Chaz, KF5JHA, the net is yours from KF5 PDS.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is Chaz, KF5JHA. Slide Master, slide number 2. We call this segment of SkyNet What's Up because it's all about what's gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide Master, slide number 3, please. Now, I'm talking about slides. Did you know we have a video version of SkyNet? That video version can be accessed by going to the YouTube channel, DARC SkyNet. Do that there and you'll find it. If you'd like to, you can go to the W5FC.org website, click on the link, and that'll get you there as well. So anyway, so slide number 3, we have talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently a brightness of around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. And in fact, it was supposed to erupt, well, maybe as much as a year ago, but it hasn't. So it's way past due. But when it does go nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star. Now, I can see the North Star with just my 2 eyes from my very light-polluted location in Mesquite, Texas. Slide Master, slide number 4. Now, this is an image of the sun taken from on May the 15th from spaceweather.com. That's the reference. Large, I think that's SDO, I think is the image is from. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times you can use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. A couple weeks ago, there was a sunspot on the sun that was large enough to see with just your solar eclipse glasses. Now, the sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. We're not quite sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. Now, I talked about the solar cycle about 3-4 months ago on SkyNet. Slide Master, slide number 5, please. On May the 20th, the moon was at its 3rd quarter phase, and so the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. Saw it the other morning driving to Ohio. On May the 25th, oh, that's tomorrow, isn't it? The moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 359,022 kilometers. On May the 26th, the moon is new. The moon is at the 1st quarter phase on June the 2nd. On June the 7th, the moon will be at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 405,554 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. On May the 25th, the planets Mercury and Uranus are in conjunction in the early morning northeastern sky. Guess what? That is only a few hours away. So if it's clear in your location, get up early morning before sunup and take a look at that. Now, the problem is that Uranus can't be seen usually with your 2 eyes. You'll need to get a pair of binoculars out. But Mercury can be easily seen. The Pleiades star cluster is close by, so if you find the Pleiades, and, well, just go look for a good star chart, and you should be able to find everything. You'll, again, need a pair of binoculars or maybe even a telescope in order to see the planet Uranus. Slide Master, slide number 7. On May the 26th, there's on the daytime occultation of the Pleiades star cluster by the moon. Now, an occultation is when the moon blocks or occults an object. You'll need a moderate-sized telescope in order to see this event since it's at a daytime. But be very careful not to point your telescope toward the sun. You can permanently damage your telescope and or your eyes, and we don't want that to happen. Slide master, slide number 8, please. In the evening twilight on May the 27th in the western sky, you can see the conjunction of the moon and the planet Jupiter. Planet Jupiter is one of the brightest things you can see in the sky. Slide master, slide number 9, please. On the evening of May the 29th in the western sky, you can observe the conjunction of the moon and the bright star Pollux. Pollux is one of the 2 bright stars in the constellation of Gemini, the twins. Slide master, slide number 10. The moon and Mars will be in conjunction in the evening sky on May the 31st, the last day of May. On slide master, slide number 11, on June the 1st, the moon and Regulus are in conjunction in the evening sky. And slide master, slide number 12, on June the 6th, the moon and Spica are in conjunction in the morning sky. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is SkyNet. Slide master, slide number 13, please. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have a question or maybe need a fill on any of the information I've given you? Maybe you just have a general astronomy question. If you have any of those needs, come down with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, not hearing anything. Slide master, slide number 14. So as the moon wanes right now, so do these words for this segment of SkyNet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, actually I'll be doing another segment on SkyNet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. This is KF5JHA, and this is the SkyNet net transmitting on the W5FC repeater on 146.88 megahertz. Back to our net control. Billy, it's yours.
Great. Thank you so much, Chaz. This is KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. Okay, looking over on our link sheet from the club website, I see that Alpha Golf 9 Sierra Golf, Antonio in Gossett over Air Radio has checked in to SkyNet. Welcome, Antonio. Is there anyone else on air that would like to check in before we move on to our next segment? If so, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from. Okay, not hearing any, so we'll move on with our next segment, which is space exploration and space history. So at this time, I will turn the net over to Gus, W5GUS. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Okay, thank you, Billy. W5GUS here with space history. Okay, I finally found it out here on the computer. Let's see. First is space exploration news. And they're talking. The first article here is talking about the puzzling behavior of Titans, which is the moon of Saturn. It's the largest moon. It's a big moon. It's about the size, a little bigger actually than Mercury. And Titan has a atmosphere. One of the few moons that do have an atmosphere. The puzzling behavior of Titan's atmosphere has been revealed by searchers at the University of Bristol for the first time by analyzing data from the Cassini mission, a joint venture between NASA and the European Space Agency and the Italian Space Agency. They've shown that the thick, hazy atmosphere of Saturn's largest moon doesn't spin in line with its surface, but instead it wobbles, kind of like a gyroscope wobbles. And Titan is the only moon in the solar system with a significant atmosphere and one that has long captivated planetary scientists. Now, after 13 years of thermal infrared observations from Cassini, researchers have tracked how Titan's atmosphere tilts and shifts over time. The results are published in the Planetary Science Journal. The behavior of, quote, the behavior of Titan's atmospheric tilt is very strange, said the lead scientist in the study. It appears the atmosphere appears to be acting like a gyroscope, stabilizing itself in space. We think some event in the past may have knocked the atmosphere off its spin axis, causing it to wobble. Even more strangely, or intriguingly, we found that the size of this tilt changes with Titan's season. And the importance of this is important because this discovery will impact NASA's upcoming Dragonfly mission, which is a drone-like rotorcraft scheduled to arrive at Titan in the 2030s. And as Dragonfly descends through the atmosphere, it will be carried by Titan's fast-moving winds, and winds that are about 20 times faster than the rotation of the surface. And understanding how the atmosphere wobbles with the seasons is critical for calculating the trajectory of Dragonfly. The tilt will affect how the payload will be carried through the air, so this research can help engineers better predict where it will touch down. Okay, on to a new species of space-adapted bacteria that was discovered on China's Tiangong space station. Scientists have discovered a previously unknown strain of microbe after analyzing samples taken from China's Tiangong space station. The new microbe strain, officially named, the new microbe strain was found in microbial samples collected from the surface of Tiangong during the a crewed mission which occurred when it returned to Earth in 2023. The new microbe is aerobatic, so it can live in oxygen. Spore-forming and rod-shaped bacteria, according to its description in a peer-reviewed paper. Let's see, it is the first time a new species has been discovered aboard Tiangong, a three-module space station in low Earth orbit. The new species is mostly closely related to one found on Earth in soil and waste, which can cause infection and even sepsis in immunocompromised people. Okay, that's it. Interestingly enough. Okay, we'll move on to space-related birthdays. And after these birthdays, there is a STS number. This might be a good place to explain what an STS number is. It stands for Space Transportation System, STS number. The very first space shuttle was named Columbia, and it's called STS-1. So it launched in April 14th, 1981. So you can kind of guess with these birthdays how the STS numbers of the missions go. Interestingly enough, the Columbia was launched on April 14th, 1981, which was exactly 20 years after the Soviet Union launched Yuri Gagarin, and he was the first human to ever go into space, exactly to the day 20 years later that Columbia was launched. Columbia orbited the Earth 36 times. It totaled 54.5 hours, or about 2 days and 6 hours, and about 1,075,000 miles total mileage. The altitude average is about 160 miles. Okay, so now let's get into the space-related birthdays. Okay, May 18th was Don Lind, STS 51 Bravo. All right, let's get this scrolling. Here we go. All right, May 19th, 1939, Dick Scobie, STS 41, STS 51. May 19th, 1955, Pierre Felt, STS 36, STS 49, STS 62. I'm not sure how high the STS numbers go, but we'll eventually someday get to it probably. All right, May 20th, 1944, birthday boy David Walker. He was STS 51A, STS 30, STS 53, STS 69. All right, stand by here. I'm getting a photograph and not the words. Stand by.
Well, while Gus is looking, Gus, just let me know when you're ready to jump back in. This is KFI PDS Billy, your net control with a session of SkyNet. While Gus is looking for what he needs, is there anyone who would like to check into this evening's net? If so, please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from.
Okay, Billy, W5G US here. I'm back up.
Carry on. Yeah, I didn't hear any check-ins. I was just trying to fill in the air while you got what you needed. So go ahead, Gus. Proceed from KFI PDS.
Okay, thanks again, Billy. Sorry about that, folks. Let's see. All right, we were at the Pierre Fout. Okay, next was David Walker, STS-51, STS-30, STS-53, STS-69. And then Thomas Akers, STS-41, STS-49, STS-61, and STS-79. May 20th, Paul Richards was STS-102. Okay, May 21st, 1942, Robert Springer, STS-29, STS-39. And May 24th, 1951 is Robert Paris, STS-35, STS-67. Okay, this week in space history, Apollo 10 launched. The crew's mission was to fly the complete profile of a moon landing mission without actually touching down on the moon. That goal was, of course, achieved by the next flight, Apollo 11. But Apollo 10 was the only the second human spacecraft to orbit the moon, and the first to travel to the moon with a lunar module. While orbiting the moon on May 22nd, 69, astronauts Tom Stafford and Gene Cernan descended inside the lunar module, which they call Snoopy, to within nearly 9 miles of the lunar surface. Meanwhile, astronaut John Young flew the command module, call sign Charlie Brown, awaiting the return of his crewmates. Having successfully tested the full lunar landing profile, the crew of Apollo 10 returned to Earth, splashing down on May 26, 1969. And John Young returned to the moon as commander of Apollo 16, and Gene Cernan commanded Apollo 17. And unlike his crew, Tom Stafford never did get to walk on the moon. And that is it for this segment. So back to you, Billy, W5GUS.
Great. Thank you very much, Gus. This is KFI PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So once again, I will return the net to Chaz, KF5JHA. The net is yours from KF5 PDS.
Thank you so much. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. Gus, I want to thank you so much for becoming part of the SkyNet Inner Circle, for participating in presentations. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Just thought I'd let all of you know something that's late breaking. I just got a notice that the sun is very active. Right now, it just belched out a X1.1 solar flare, so interesting stuff. Keep track of the sun by going to spaceweather.com to find out what's going on with the sun. Slide Master, slide number 15. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC50ZT. Carolyn contributed to SkyNet each week, almost from its beginning. In 2012, yep, that's when SkyNet started, until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. So Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is actually two constellations, Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. Now, Boötes represents the shepherd or herdsman. Most people think it looks like a kite or an ice cream cone. A double-dipped ice cream cone from Brahms sounds really great. And you know what? Corona Borealis looks like the third dip of ice cream that's fallen off the ice cream cone. Yep. Slide Master, slide number 16. Now there's one very bright star in Boötes called Arcturus, which is the fourth brightest star in the sky. You can find Arcturus by using the handle of the Big Dipper. Follow the curve of the arc of the handle until you run into Arcturus, so you arc to Arcturus. Other interesting stars on Boötes are Isar, Mu Boötes, Kappa Boötes, and Chi Boötes. I'll concentrate on deep sky objects instead of those stars. Slide Master, slide number 17, please. The first object that I'd like to talk about is NGC, which stands for New General Catalog. 5466 is a 9.2 arcsecond in size and has a brightness of 9.1 magnitude. It's a globular cluster, and it's small and faint. It requires a large aperture telescope to resolve it properly. Looks like a fuzzball on an 8-inch to a 10-inch telescope. It is a challenge to find it in binoculars. The challenge for this week is to try to observe NGC 5466 with binoculars. I would suggest a pair of 20 by 80 binoculars in dark skies to do so. Slide Master, slide number 18. The next object is NGC 5248, which is a barred spiral galaxy. Its magnitude is 10.3. Smaller telescopes under 8 inches can see it, but only as a weak glow, with little to no structure visible. Stephen James O'Meara was able to spy this 10th magnitude galaxy with a 7 by 35 pair of binoculars from Hawaii. You have to understand, he has excellent eyesight, and he was at an elevation of 4,200 feet, but it looked much of the time, he looked for it for quite some time in order to do so, to find it. It's easy to see in some structure in this galaxy with a 10-inch telescope or larger at the Texas Star Party. In his entry for his galaxy in his book, The Caldwell Object, Stephen James O'Meara writes that Barbara Wilson saw a beautiful structure with the arms revealing many knots with her 20-inch telescope. This was probably at the Texas Star Party as well, and you know that just happened about a month ago. Slide Master, slide number 19. The final object that I'll cover in Boötes is NGC 5676, a spiral galaxy that requires a larger telescope to resolve. It's a very challenging object to locate. It looks like a faint fuzzy patch in an 8-inch telescope in dark skies. You can begin to see some details in a 12-inch or larger telescope. You might be able to see NGC 5660 as a separate spiral galaxy nearby, looking very similar, dim and fuzzy. And this is KF5JJ, and this is SkyNet. Slide Master, slide number 20. Okay, slide number 20 are jokes. Oh, I haven't done jokes yet, so I've got to do some jokes. And the jokes are usually related to one or two of the constellations, so here we go. I went to the dentist and they said I need a crown. I thought, fill in the blank. Recognition at last. Get it? I needed a crown? Okay. Why was the detective excited when he found a thimble-sized crown? He was looking for fingerprints. What do you... Fingerprints? Get it? Never mind, if I have to explain them. What do you call the queen of cows? It's not corned beef, but it's crowned beef. A tornado tore through Miss Oklahoma's vegetable patch the day after she was crowned Miss America. She actually got world peas. Okay, I still have a couple more left. You can boo or hiss. If you got Echolink, you can sit there and type in comments about my jokes over there if you want. What did the court jester call the balding crown prince? The heir apparent with no hair apparent. And the final one, here we go. When I do this at the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas club meetings, they usually cheer and really applaud because it's the last one I'm doing. All lives begin with, fill in the blank, a crowning achievement. And this is KF5JHA. Slide Master, slide number 21, please. Corona Borealis is the northern crown. It could be considered a scoop of ice cream that has fallen off the ice cream cone of Boötes. I just talked about that, didn't I? But as a crown, Gamma or Gemma or Alphaca is the brightest star in Corona Borealis. It is the gem star of the crown. Alphaca is a spectroscopic binary star about 75 light years away. A smaller yellow star orbits around a white primary and partially eclipses it, causing a slight reduction in Alphaca's brightness of about 1/10 of a magnitude. Sigma Corona Borealis and Zeta Corona Borealis are very similar double stars that each have a brighter member and a dimmer secondary member. R Corona Borealis hosts two well-known variable stars, which are both examples of a particular class of variable stars. R Corona Borealis is a prototype for a rare type of variable star which shines at a maximum throughout most of its cycle, shining at about 6 magnitude most of the time. However, at irregular intervals, it quickly dims to somewhere around 7th to 15th magnitude, usually hovering around 12.5 magnitude, with a brightness fluctuation erratically during its minimum time. Wow. Now, I've talked about this earlier in SkyNet. T Corona Borealis is another variable star known to be as the blaze star. T Corona Borealis is a recurrent nova. Normally it shines at about 10th magnitude, and that's what it's shining at right now. But it has erupted in the past and reached naked eye visibility about 2nd magnitude. 2 eruptions have been recorded, one in 1866 where it reached 2nd magnitude, and again in 1946 where it reached 3.2 magnitude. In both cases, the star's brightness fell off quickly after the initial outburst, falling well below naked eye visibility in about 7 or 8 days. Wow. So when it happens, you've got to go look at it quickly. It's not happened yet. Or I talk about this at every SkyNet. Okay, Slide Master, slide number 22. So, NGC 5958 is a face-on spiral galaxy in Corona Borealis that shines at a dim magnitude of 12.9. It can be observed with a 16-inch telescope, but it's just too faint to be seen in an 8-inch telescope. Slide Master, slide number 23. NGC 6085 and NGC 6086. These two galaxies are both in the same field of view with low to medium powers in a telescope. NGC 6085 is a face-on spiral galaxy shining at a dim magnitude 14.3. NGC 6086 is a magnitude 12.8, which is quite a bit brighter, but it's still very dim. Neither of these two galaxies can be seen in an 8-inch telescope. You have to have a light bucket of a 16-inch or larger to see these things. This is KF5JHA, and this is SkyNet. Slide Master, slide number 24. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. I've just given you a sampling of some of these objects. The Astronomical League has at last count 74 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. So if you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. Slide Master, slide number 25, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Boötes, the Shepherd, and Corona Borealis, the Northern Crown. I should say Constellations, yes. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I use, borrow, and steal from them every SkyNet. I also use, at times, the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next week, we'll take a look at a different one, Lupus the Wolf. Yep. And this is KF5JHA Chaz saying good night, 73, and back to our net control, Billy. It's all back to you.
right, thank you very much, Chaz. This is KFI-PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC SkyNet. All right, let me take a pause and see if there's anyone that would like to check in. I'm not seeing anyone new on the club login sheet, but if there's anyone over voice or Echolink that would like to check in, please come now with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
This is Kilo November 5, Echo, Echo, Echo. Al from Allen.
Great, Kilo November 5, Echo, Echo, Echo from Allen, and my pen ran out right as I was writing your name. If you would give me your name once again, sir.
No problem. The name here is Al, Alpha Lima.
Copy that, Al. Thanks. Is there anyone else out there that would like to check in? If so, please come out with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Echo 5, Kilo India Papa, KE5 KIP, KE5 KIP, like checking the net.
KE5 KIP, if you'll give me your name and where you're transmitting from too, that would be great.
Name is Christopher, and I think you were asking for location. I am in North Arlington.
Copy that. I got KE5 KIP, Christopher, North Arlington. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to check into this evening's net? Okay, not hearing any, so I will turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, for space launches for this week. And if you want, you have my permission to go ahead into visible satellite passages if you have some to report for there too. So this is the KE5ICX from KFI-PDS.
All right, thank you, Billy. This is KE5ICX. Let's see here. I think the first one I'll give you is in late May. This will be TPS-3 SC-08. It'll launch from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Falcon 9 rocket will launch the 8th Global Positioning System 3 satellite built by Lockheed Martin. It is named in honor of mathematician Katherine Johnson, whose calculations contribute significantly to early space flight. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will target a landing on a drone ship position in the Atlantic Ocean. Then we have on June 8th coming out the Axiom Mission 4. This will be launched from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. This will be the 4th private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. Former NASA astronaut and acting space directors of human spaceflight will serve as the commander of the mission. This will be her 5th trip to the space and her 2nd time commanding a private astronaut mission. That's going to be Shabbat Shukla, an Indian Air Force pilot and astronaut with the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, will be the pilot on board the SpaceX Crew Dragon. Shawat Wisniewski, a Polish member of the European Space Agency, astronaut reserve class of 2022, and Tibor Kapu, a Hungarian member of the Hungarian In-Orbit or HUNAR program, will serve as the mission specialist. These 4 astronauts will spend up to 14 days docked to the U.S. ISS, I should say the ISS, after launching from NASA's Kennedy Space Center on a Falcon 9 rocket. The following stage separation, the booster will target a touchdown in the landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral. And I'll give you one more here. June 23rd, 24th will be the last launch of the H2A, or GOSAT GW. This will be from Launch Pad 1 at Takashima Space Center in Japan. A Mitsubishi Heavy Industry Company's H2A rocket will launch the Global Observing Satellite for Greenhouse Gases and Water Cycle, or GOSAT GW, a Japanese Earth-orbiting satellite, roughly 6,300 pounds. The satellite will operate in a sun-synchronous orbit at an altitude of 414 miles. This spacecraft comes from a partnership between the Japanese Ministry of Environment, National Institute of Environmental Studies, and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency. The two primary instruments are the Total Anthropogenetic and Natural Emissions Mapping Spectrometer 3, and Advanced Microwave Scanning Radiometer 3. And this will be the 50th and final launch of the H2A rocket, a real workhorse in the Japanese arsenal of launch spacecraft. All right, I'm going to move over to ISS passes. There are a bunch of them, and I want to get at least a few of them in before the end of our net. We have on May 24th, that's tonight, let me see, 10/18. This one's already passed, so tomorrow, May 25th, will be our next pass. This will be two of them, actually, minus 1.3 magnitude at 21:31 in the evening. It'll reach its highest point at 15 degrees at 21:33. It'll fall to the east-northeast at 21:35. There'll be a second one, May 25th, at minus 1.3 magnitude, about 90 minutes later at 23:07. Out of the northwest, reach its highest point at 23:08 at 22 degrees, and it'll fall to the west-northwest at 23:08. The 26th has a really good pass. This one is minus 3.7 magnitude, very bright. 22:18 out of the northwest. It'll reach 71 degrees at 22:22, and it'll fall to the north-northeast at 22:22. It will go into shadow at 71 degrees, so kind of blank out on you. Next really good pass is on the 28th. It'll be minus 2.4 magnitude, 22:19 in the evening again out of the west-northwest. Reach its highest point at 29 degrees at 22:22 again, and it will also go into shadow at 22:22. What is it about 22:22 this week? And May 29th, minus 3.5 magnitude at 21:31 out of the northwest again. It'll reach its highest point at 59 degrees at 21:34, and it'll fall to the south-southeast at 21:36.
Normal state.
And Billy, I'm just going to leave it there. There were some really great passes for the International Space Station, so have a look. You can go to heavensabove.com and plug in your longitude and latitude and get the information. And you can do this also with amateur radio satellites as well. Back to you, Billy, KE5ICX.
Great, thank you very much, Tom. And yeah, boy, there was a slew of them. I saw them listed there. And I was just like, oh boy. Sometimes there's nothing, and sometimes there's an abundance. So as Tom said, you can check out heavens-above.com, plug in your GPS location, and you can find out all bunch of ISS visible passages plus other objects that you can that they track. So take a look at that website. All right, we'll do a final round of check-ins. So if you would like to get in for this evening's net, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. This is last call for check-ins. Okay, not hearing any, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this net. Tonight we had 26 hams participating on the air, so thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5PDS Billy. I'll be closing the net at 22:30 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73 everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, in about 5 minutes time, there will be the Afterglow movie net, where tonight's discussion will be the black hole. So come back for the Afterglow movie net. 73 everybody.
Thank you, Billy, for doing the net. And yes, 5 minutes. Come back in 5 minutes. Got enough time to make some popcorn, microwave popcorn. Come on back. Black hole in 5 minutes. KE5, I6.
I'd like to stay to participate in Afterglow, because I think I saw that movie back in 1977 when it was released. I remember Ernest Borgnine is part of that cast. Anyway, have a great evening, everyone. This is KF5JJ signing off from Lockbourne, Ohio.
Thanks, Chaz. This is Virginia. ND5F. I'm actually going to be the net control for this film, which I think scarred Tom for life when he was probably about 20-something years old. I'm not sure what happened, but I think it was really a traumatic experience for him. So he asked me if I would run the net tonight. So I'm it in a few minutes. ND5F.
Very good, Virginia. I'll be here in a few minutes. By the way, if anybody listening happens to be a user of the 146.72 Irving repeater Echolink node, I'm going to turn off that node at about midnight, a few minutes before midnight this evening. The W5FC Dash R Echolink node will go dark. And we're going to try to get a completely different setup, different radio, different computer, different copy of the softwares, all set up at the bingo hall tomorrow morning by a different crew of people. So hopefully before noon tomorrow, the Irving Echolink node will be operational again. So just wanted to let anybody know that happens to be listening. This is N5BD waiting for the Afterglow net.
Okay, everybody, let's get this show on the road. My name is Virginia. My call sign is NB5S, and I will be your host for this evening's Afterglow, after SkyNet, every Saturday night. You crazy people stay up late and talk about a science fiction film. Often it's a bad science fiction film. Every now and then we get a really good one. And this week we have one that I think is good, bad, and unique all at the same time. It is one that I suggested, and to the chagrin of Tom, our fearless leader, KE5ICX, I suggested it so many times that he finally gave in, and we watched The Black Hole from 1979. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to give a brief synopsis of this film. I'll make it as brief as possible. And then we will take check-ins, and anyone who would like to check in, whether you've seen the film or not, you are welcome. If you're just listening, that's wonderful. We'd love to know you're there. If you would like to comment, I will give people who are just listening a chance to comment later in the net after they've heard a few things. They can tell us whether or not they'd like to see this movie or whether they remember seeing it. But if you're just listening, just let me know you're just listening. So, here we go. I'm going to synopsize this film, The Black Hole, from 1979. This film was made kind of on the coattails of Star Wars, but it has a history predating Star Wars. And it was produced by Walt Disney. It was the first PG-rated movie that Disney ever produced. There's a lot of conjecture about why they made it a PG-rated movie, but I think they were trying to appeal to a broader audience in order to get possibly benefit from a couple of really great sci-fi movies that had gone in the couple of years preceding. So here we go. The Black Hole is a 1979 American science fiction film directed by Gary Nelson and produced by Walt Disney Productions. The film stars Maximilian Schell, Robert Forster, Joseph Bottoms, Yvette Mimo, Anthony Perkins, and Ernest Borgnine, while the voices of the main robot characters are provided by Roddy McDowell and Slim Pickens. They were both uncredited. The music for the film was composed by John Barry. With a production budget of $20 million plus another $6 million for advertising, it was at the time the most expensive picture ever produced by Disney. In the early 1970s, the film was initially conceived as a space-themed disaster film a la Irwin Allen. However, the script went through numerous iterations from various screenwriters. Disney's effects departments used novel computerized camera technology to create the visual effects. The film premiered on December 18th, 1979 in London in the United Kingdom, and on December 21st, 1979 in the United States. It was the first film from Walt Disney Productions to receive a PG rating. The film received mixed reviews from the film critics and grossed $35 million at the U.S. box office. The film was nominated for 2 Academy Awards for Best Cinematography and Best Visual Effects, beating out Stanley Kubrick's 2001 with one more nomination than it got. Plot. 547 days into their trip in an unspecified future year, the spacecraft USS Palomino has nearly completed its mission exploring deep space. The crew consists of Captain Dan Holland, First Officer Lieutenant Charlie Pizer, journalist Harry Booth, ESP-sensitive scientist Dr. Kate McCrae, and the expedition's civilian leader Dr. Alex Durant, the diminutive robot Vincent, vital information necessary centralized. As it is returning to Earth, the Palomino discovers a black hole with the apparently abandoned and long-lost USS Cygnus nearby, the same ship that McCrae's father was aboard when it vanished 20 years ago. The Palomino decides to investigate and finds that there is a mysterious null gravity field surrounding the Cygnus that allows it to defy the massive gravitational pull of the black hole. The Palomino briefly strays outside the field and is damaged by the intense gravity, forcing it to emergency dock with the Cygnus, which no longer appears abandoned. The cautious Palomino crew soon encounter Dr. Hans Reinhardt, one of Earth's most brilliant scientists, according to Durant. Reinhardt explains he has been alone on the Cygnus since it encountered a meteor field and was disabled. He ordered the human crew to return to Earth without him, but McCrae's father chose to remain aboard and has since died. To replace the crew, Reinhardt built faceless, black-robed drones, sentry robots, and his sinister bodyguard robot, Maximilian. Reinhardt says he intends to fly the Cygnus through the black hole because 20 years of study has shown that it is possible. Only an enamored Durant believes him and asks if he can accompany Reinhardt. However, the rest of the Palomino crew start to become suspicious of Reinhardt. Booth sees a drone limping while Holland witnesses an android funeral and discovers personal items in the Cygnus crew quarters. Vincent meets a battered earlier model of his type named Bob, Biosanitation Battalion. Bob explains the drones are actually what is left of the human crew who mutinied when Reinhardt refused to return to Earth after the Cygnus was damaged. McCrae's father was killed leading the mutiny, and the crew was lobotomized and reprogrammed to serve Reinhardt. Vincent uses telepathy to tell McCrae after she informs Durant what really happened. He removes a drone's faceplate, revealing the zombie-like face of a crew member. Durant tries to flee with McCrae, but is killed by Maximilian. Reinhardt orders his robots to lobotomize McCrae, but just as the process begins, she's rescued by Holland, Vincent, and Bob. Harry Booth tries to escape alone in the Palomino, but is shot down and fatally crashes into the Cygnus. A subsequent meteor storm and the explosion of the ship's overstressed main power plant caused the anti-gravity generator to fail. Without its null-gravity bubble, the Cygnus quickly starts to break apart under the black hole's huge gravitational force. Reinhardt and the Palomino survivors separately plan their escape in the probe ship used to study the black hole. Reinhardt orders Maximilian to prepare the ship for launch, but then a large V-screen falls on Reinhardt, pinning him to the deck. His cries for help are not acknowledged by the lobotomized crew, nor Maximilian, who ignores his master and pursues the Palomino crew as they attempt to escape. The crew nears the probe ship before being confronted again by Maximilian. He fatally damages Bob before battling with Vincent as McCrae, Holland, and Pizer continue to the probe. Vincent defeats his opponent by drilling into Maximilian's armor, disabling his system, and sending him hurtling into the black hole. Holland, Pizer, McCrae, and Vincent launch the probe, which they soon realize has pre-programmed flight path, taking them directly into the black hole. Within the black hole, the Cygnus completely breaks apart. The drifting Reinhardt and Maximilian merge above a burning, hellish landscape populated by dark-robed specters resembling Cygnus drones. Meanwhile, the probe ship is led through a cathedral-like arched crystal tunnel by floating angel figures. After the ship emerges from a white hole, Holland, Pizer, McCrae, and Vincent fly towards a planet near a bright star. The end. Again, this is Virginia, NV5F. I'm your net control for the Afterglow tonight. Our topic is the black hole. If you would like to check in and discuss this film, or even if you don't want to and just want to listen, please come now with your call sign, your name, and whether or not you saw the black hole 1979. Please come now.
Kilo India 5, Juliet, Charlie, Mike, KI5, JCM. Yes, I saw the movie as a child, and it continued to fuel my nightmares, especially the part where Maximilian and the evil German guy merge. Yeah, that fueled my single-H nightmares well into my teens.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo, Bill and Irving. Yes, I saw the movie today.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike. Tony and Dallas. Yes, I've seen the movie.
India Charlie X-ray, Tom and Corpus Christi. Yeah, I saw this film.
WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas. Yes, I saw this film.
Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato. Bill in Garland. I saw this film 4.5 times.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey J, near Weatherford. I have seen The Black Hole. I will need a refresher, so I might be just listening.
Wow, okay, we've got a good crowd tonight. We have got KI5JCM, Thomas, yes, he's seen this movie. N5BB Bill, yes, he saw it. NT5DM, Tony, yes, he's seen it. KE5 ICX Tom, yes, he saw it. WB5OZL Brenda, yes. W5DLT Bill, yes, he's seen it a number of times, as have I. I've seen it more times than I can count. Let's see, and KG5DVWJ, yes, he saw it. He might be just listening, but Bill, Jay, we've got so many people that you could crib off of the 6 people that come before you if you want to. So I'll ask you when we get to you whether you want to say anything. Is there anyone else before we start round 1 who would like to check in for Afterglow this evening? Please come now, call sign, name, and whether or not you saw the black hole.
November 2, Victor India Papa. No, I did not see the movie. No, I have nothing to contribute.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy, and Sherman on Echolink. I saw the film originally in the theater, and I've seen it over the years, but it's been a while since I've seen it. But I may be able to have some things to say. So you can put me down as a yes, KF5PDS.
Okay, we've added into VIP. Did not see the movie, doesn't really want to say anything, so thank you for checking in. We just like to know people are listening. We've got Billy, KF5PDS. She says yes, and wow, we've got quite a group tonight. If a couple of other usuals trickle in, we might have a world record here. Okay, let's get going with Thomas, KI5JCM. Please tell us what you think about the plot of The Black Hole.
I think as sci-fis go, this one was very imaginative. It was a lot of they put a lot of hard science into it, and I remember this was right around when Disney Channel was launching. My grandparents had cable, and there was a lot of talk about, how much science and physics they put into it and whatnot. I love the plot. I love most of it, right up until the ending. For those of y'all that don't know, if you were born Gen X or earlier, there were so-called children's movies that were meant to emotionally traumatize us to make us stronger. And the end of this movie was certainly one of those. I seriously, Maximilian, that robot, and the German Duke merging, still, I look at that going, that still makes me uneasy as an adult. KI5JCM, back to net.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. Nice and brief, to the point, and you liked The Black Hole. All right, overall, except for the crazy traumatic stuff at the end. I will have comments about that for sure. Okay, N5BB Bill, tell us your thoughts on the plot of this film. Wonderful, wonderful film, NB5F.
Oh boy. This is in 5BD. Well, first, the link Tom sent out was to archive.org, and I just want to read you the tag. So there's tags, so you can see what the heck kind of movie it is. So here are the tags they listed for this movie: space, adventures, robots. That sounds okay, right? Mystery. I don't know about mystery. Haunted. Well, lasers. Oh, yeah, there are lots of lasers. Betrayed. Oh, yeah. A betrayal. Yeah. And travel horror. That was one of the tags. Travel, Horror, horror. Yeah, I guess it was travel horror. Some things about this. After I got through the first 2.5 minutes of no video, only audio, I don't know what was going on there. Was it just me, or was the first 2.5 minutes black for everybody else also? So some general comments about this. Generally, the thing was a reasonable movie. In other words, it was put together the way you'd put a movie together. It kind of moved through it. I didn't feel any places it was just stuck. It was moving forward. Most of it, not all of it, had a plot that seemed to be reasonably understandable, although there were a few things that were often left field. Crazy. So, did I like the movie? Well, I didn't dislike it, and I was moderately... In other words, I wanted to finish the movie to see what happened, although the end of it was a real letdown, I thought. But I thought it was a reasonable movie, okay? So if I had paid money to see it at a movie theater, I would have thought, especially back in 1979, that was reasonable. Back in 1979, pretty good visual effects, nothing in it, none of the acting and actors and the directing wasn't horrible. The plot wasn't horrible. So it was kind of a new movie to this genre. I mean, there were a few others, but to me, this movie seemed to try to take a few things from 2001, Space Odyssey, and maybe a few things from Star Wars, and then a few things from other kind of disaster movies and things. And, of course, with an actor like Ernest Borgnine, you had the character that was a contrarian, kind of a difficult character. They definitely played that up. This is in 5BD. What else about the plot? I was confused about the name of the second robot. I understood Vincent, but the other one, I thought they called him Charlie, but I guess his name was B.O.B. And I thought it was really weird. He was damaged in a way to make him look very corny, and his voice had kind of a Western twang in it, which I thought was that was very corny. There were a few things in the movie that were corny, and that was one of them. After a while, it became kind of aggravating to me, the voice of Bob. Some things in the plot I think were over the top, like Maximilian, and the fact that he either followed the instructions of the bad guy Hans Reinhardt, or he would go over and do additional bad things on his own. So he didn't seem to be very much in control, and I don't know, I didn't understand that. It's like Hans wanted to be so much in charge, in control. Why in the world did he let that robot Maximilian be out of control? That made no sense to me. I did not like the ESP thing they threw in there. I didn't see any reason they had to put that in there. No scientific basis for it. You notice that Dr. Kate, she was communicating via ESP to the robot, Vincent, and to humans. Did that make any sense? Not to me at all. I think that was stupid. Plot point. Some other plot points near the end of the movie where everything seemed to go crazy, they seem to all be flying out toward the black hole with all these spacesuits. They didn't seem to be inside a vessel. That made no sense. They would have died immediately. I did not understand that. I did not like the gravity being going on and off, like they had artificial gravity without any explanation of that. It seemed to be something he kind of invented himself out there in space. That was kind of ad hoc. Also, when they went away from the artificial gravity, the incredible vibration seemed to be a little bit overdone to me. I can imagine something getting pulled apart, but the shaking bothered me. It seemed a little bit overdone. What really bothered me was near the end of the movie where the report comes in, a meteorite struck the ship, Captain. Not an asteroid, not a meteor, a meteorite. Well, meteorites are the results of meteors that have gone through an atmosphere hitting a body, or like the Earth or the Moon or something. So the meteorite's what is left there immobile. Meteorites don't strike things. Meteors do, and out in space, asteroids or things do. They weren't even meteors. So all that made no sense. They were red hot. Why? There was no atmosphere out there. Why were all these things red hot and glowing? That made no sense at all. So that was all goofy, weird plot point. Somebody should have been demoted for putting that poor science in the movie. I thought there was too much emphasis on laser weapons. They were shooting up everything. Zap, 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 zap. Like they were trying to show off their ability to simulate laser weapons in the movie. I thought there was way too much of that. And like all of these movies, when you have the good guys and the bad guys, you notice practically none of the good guys get shot and killed or damaged. All the bad guys eventually get shot and, killed or decommissioned. That didn't make any sense. So, and then the end of the movie, I did not understand the last scenes. Number one, when you go into a black hole to the event horizon, you're never going to reappear. You're gone. And they didn't mention wormholes or anything, so I don't know what they meant by what's going to happen once you fall in the black hole. It's like, although maybe, I don't know, in late 70s, maybe the science of that wasn't quite as developed, but I really think they took some creative liberty with that. They would have been squirts. They really would have disappeared. They would have been squeezed, and they would have not lived through it. And I didn't understand them coming back out to find some eclipsed sun and approaching some other thing. I don't know. That made no sense to me. I don't know why they did that. I don't know what they were trying to do. I didn't follow it. So again, there's some things in the movie that could have been reasonable, some things that were kind of enjoyable, some things I kind of hung in there with, but there were other things that bothered the heck out of me. It's the devil's in the details. This is N5BB, back to Ned.
All righty, thank you, Bill. You said a lot. I'm sure I took a few notes, but before we go on, I'll answer two things. It's funny that you talked about the blackness at the front of the movie because whenever I watch videos on YouTube of people watching 2001, it starts the same way with blackness and music, and everybody sits and thinks that their DVD or stream is broken because they can't see a picture but they can hear music, so they did kind of copy 2001 that way. And just one other thing, Dr. Hans Reinhardt did mention earlier in the movie before he decided to finally fly the Cygnus through the black hole, he did mention an Einstein-Rosen bridge, so he had a theory that it might be a wormhole. So anyway, next we have Tony, ND5TM. What did you think about the plot of the black hole from ND5F?
I have always found the plot of this movie somewhat disappointing. It's not awful. It's not incoherent. It's just kind of disappointing. It never really engages me. I never care very strongly. The characters aren't like amazing action movie eye candy, but this isn't Remains of the Day either. I don't genuinely feel the story draws me into caring about their fate. I'll talk more about the characters in another round, including the very worst ones. So really, I'll try to be more concise. Yeah, there are some interesting moments. At one point when they're on the bridge, I can't tell if Reinhardt whispers to Kate McRae if he's going to protect her from Maximilian or if he wants her to protect him from Maximilian. Because when I first saw this, I was in like first grade, and I really wondered if like he and Maximilian, because we saw the woman, she's like telepathic with robots. I wondered if like he and Maximilian had been the same character all along, like Maximilian was his id or something, although I didn't know what an id was in first grade. So yeah, it never lives up to my hopes, even though it's not awful. NT5TM.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Astute and brief as always. And yeah, I can totally see your point on that. As an adult, when I was a kid, anyway, I'll get into that later. Okay, time for Tom, KU5ICX. I think he secretly loves the black hole, but we'll just see what he says about the plot.
All right, well, thank you, Virginia. Well, yes, this was not one of my favorite movies of all time, or even of some time, or even part of the time. I take it. So here's the thing. Having grown up on Disney stuff like a lot of people did, and live action films were also a staple of Disney, and a film that always comes to mind for me is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which as a movie with James Mason and Kirk Douglas and all of that is really a fabulously well done film, of which I think The Black Hole mimics, but does not even come close to producing something that of that caliber and quality. So, and that may be an unfair comparison, but I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. We got the spaceship, and we had that wonderful dining room thing that the dinner, which I think is meant to allude to what was in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Our antagonist in this, in 20,000 Leagues, is brilliant and very capable, whereas our scientist and captain is not so much, and he's lobotomizing the crew. He can't talk them into staying. He can't do any of these things. He's got a robot out of control. He doesn't know how to control them. He's got robots running around. I don't know what they do all day except do shooting things because they're passing time. And it just, and then we've got a lot of laser blasts and things going on, and it's a jumble. There's no, and even at the end, I didn't really care about the characters, but I go too far ahead, I guess, on all of that. And then you take and you add the special effects that the same year we had Star Trek, the motion picture, which had fabulous effects. 1977, we had fabulous effects from Star Wars. And here's Disney, who is well known for great special effects, and it's not so good. And we have the robots that are embarrassingly characterized. And, okay, I'm thinking, well, it must be for kids. And then we tear to shreds that one guy, giving it the PG rating. And I'm thinking, well, it's not really for kids because that terrorizes kids. And then we saw at the end with Maximilian and the robot being combined together, and that terrorizing kids. So I'm thinking maybe this isn't a kids' film, but we got robots in it that are cute and adorable, I guess. I don't know. What I'm saying here is that was a bit of a jumble. That was a lot of a jumble. And watching it, I was somewhat disappointed in how the movie progressed. The John Barry score was great. I enjoyed it, but it was repetitious because the action was repetitious. So it didn't go as far as it could have. And then the ending was just, what the heck was that? I guess heaven and hell in a not so, let me re-say it. So we have a I don't know what you call it, a modernized version of heaven and hell and all of that, which there's a whole etymology on all of that you can go into on a religious standpoint. But that's more or less a westernized version of you know, post-death stuff. But there's a whole thing on that. So it was kind of forced upon us, and it looked kind of ridiculous to me. I don't know. I've seen better episodes of Space 1999 where they leave you wanting, but at least it was mysterious enough you go, well, I can fill in my own ending. This one, they didn't do that. They more or less told me how it was supposed to end. And then we don't even know where they go. Are they on the other side of a white hole, black hole, and what's the planet and the star? And are they going to starve to death and die? Because who knows where they are? I mean, geez. Was it? I don't know. Okay, that's it. Kind of a jumbled mess. I was confused, and the characters didn't make much sense. So, back to you, Virginia. KE5ICX.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I appreciate your review there. I think it could have been a lot worse, so, you know, I have hope. All right. Brenda, WB5OZL from NV5F. What did you think about the plot of the black hole?
This is WB5OZL. Well, you know, somebody says, "This is a black hole, let's go jump through it." Oh, hold my beer. Strikes me like that. You don't know what's in there. You don't know what's on the other side. You don't know what's going to happen to you. I would send some probes in there first, maybe. I wouldn't think you would even survive it. And if you did, where would you be? obviously they think they ended up in Dante's Inferno, which was kind of imaginative. But the idea of just jumping in a black hole, let's go see what's there. Oh, it's just, there's a whole lot of videos on YouTube of stupid guys doing stupid stunts because there's no woman around to tell them not to. If this guy had a wife, she'd have said, no, you're not going through that black hole. You don't know what's in there. So, I know, it's kind of unadventurous of me, but, I didn't end well. And I think this kind of couldn't find its way. Was it gruesome and horrific, or was it a cute kiddie movie? It had that kind of feel to it for a while, of being a movie for the younger, unsophisticated audiences. And the goofy little robots, they remind me of the Cars in the Disney animated Cars movie. And I was thinking of Tow Mater, who's voiced by Larry the Cable Guy. But in this case, this one was voiced by Slim Pickens. So I kind of expected him to write a missile down. All right. So I didn't hate it. It was colorful. It had a lot of action. The ship was pretty cool, although it had a lot of stuff on it that you weren't really sure what its function was. It was just bells and whistles. That's done so often in sci-fi movies, especially when you have a pretty good budget. But cockpit looked like they had taken apart a bunch of Tiffany lamps and glued them on. Which I love Tiffany. But I love that design of the squares and rectangles. But I just didn't understand what the function of all this was. So I never saw this movie before. I saw a lot of science fiction movies pre-1978 when my first child was born. Then there was a drought when we were not about to take a baby to a movie, because that's just asking for trouble. And then there was a feast again when we took the kids to every sci-fi movie there was, because they loved them. So this was in that period of time when I, just had a 1-year-old and just didn't get out to movies much, so I never saw it. So I'm glad I did see it. Now I know what everybody's talking about. All right, back to net. WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. I think we're getting a definite consensus on the consistency issues of this movie. Next we have Bill again, different Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think of the black hole?
Well, thank you, Virginia. I have to say, when I first saw this movie as a kid, everyone I knew, my family, myself included, we hated it. And I think it was the ending that caused us to hate the movie. You spent your money, you invested your time, and you feel like you got ripped off. So I decided to watch it again for the afterglow. I watched it another time in the early 80s when we had HBO. And then I found a link on YouTube, criminally underrated movies. And it was an hour and 45-minute where this guy reviewed this movie. And so what I got out of it is, it's about kind of a black hole, but maybe a spiritual significance of our lives and what we do. And you kind of see that guy Reinhardt get merged with the robot in fire, and the good characters going towards the light, I guess, or the planet or something, and then, the bad guy getting consumed by fire, if I understand that right. I may have loved it better if I could have seen, being blind, the visual effects. Well, I could care less. We'll get into that later, but, it wasn't bad, but it had the unfortunate going against Star Wars from 1977. The expectations were pretty high. The previews that they show, like for the commercials and stuff, I went back and watched that. And the way the previews are, it makes it seem bigger than the movie really was. Now, having said that, when I watched it again, after watching the hour and 45-minute reviewer that really described the movie in depth for me, I appreciate it a little more. Also, having watched some really bad science fiction movies, thanks to the Afterglow movie, I maybe appreciate this one a little more. So I'm mixed about it. It went through several rewrites, and I think that's where the plot got kind of lost. They conceived the idea in 1972 and wanted to be more 2001-like, but then Disney also realized, they wanted to get a piece of the science fiction dollar. And so I think it didn't know how it wanted to be. Is it a children's movie? They wanted to appeal to adults as well. Alien was out at that time. Star Trek, the motion picture, Moonraker. And so it had some stiff competition there at Christmas time during its release. But I think what killed the plot, honestly, I think it was just the ending. Back to you, Virginia, W5BLT.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Those are some good insights. I appreciate you digging on this movie to find out a little bit more about it, since you do have the disadvantage of needing descriptions and explanations of things that are not explained verbally. So appreciate the time you spent on this one. Okay, the next person we do have is Jay. Jay, after hearing everything you've heard, do you want to comment on any thoughts you have about your remembrances of the black hole? Let me know if there's anything you would like to add at this point, and if not, we can just check with you later in D5F.
All right, this is KG5BZW. Let's just say so far the comments are pretty much, remind me of the reason I didn't particularly want to watch this film again. I mean, it's watchable. It doesn't mean you can't, that doesn't mean you don't hate it afterward you watched it. I mean, I'll put it this way. I didn't participate last week in the Afterglow Movie Net because I found the movie that we were watching. I don't think I was, unless I'm just not remembering. But my recollection of last week is I tried watching the movie and I just gave up after a bit, and it's better than that. I don't know. I do remember I actually do remember that Eisenstein rose, and it's like that. I remember the first time entering the black hole didn't really make any sense to me, but it's kind of funny how there's some weird pop sci stuff out there about how possibly the origin of the Big Bang was actually some sort of I'm going to botch this, but I'll just say it anyway. It's like a hyperdimensional space is being eaten by a black hole, and we're actually, our universe is actually in a hyperdimensional universe. We're actually on the surface of this hyperdimensional black hole in another universe and stuff like that. So, except that, if you're going to go that way, I think it always decreases in dimension. I don't know. It was some random thing I remember reading about years ago. Just stuff people, scientists or whatever, theorists getting throwing ideas out there and that may have some semblance of being real, but it's really more about, I don't know, getting eyes on. I don't know. I don't know where some of the pop sci stuff comes from. Yeah, I said my 2 cents on that. I do remember the actual wormhole bit is actually what I'm trying to say, but yeah, the plot didn't really make that much sense to the overall scheme of things. I'm trying to remember the merge scene, and I started to look on YouTube for it. There was another movie where there was like a merger of electronics and people was, the first Star Trek movie. Which, except for, apparently it wasn't horrifying. All I remember was, there's this big blob of light where, it's like, a new type of being is being created and blah, blah, blah. So apparently, robots and humans merging was a thought of the day, and everybody wanted to have their own take or something. I don't know. I don't know. I think I rambled on, though, so I'll hand it to the next person. KG5BZW.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Yeah, you might want to, maybe could type on YouTube, like, Black Hole 1979 ending scene or something, and you would see the scene, the merging scene. That would give you a better visual on what that was. Okay, it's more of a symbolic kind of thing, versus a kind of thing like in Star Trek. Okay, so into VIC said he's just listening and didn't care to contribute, so we will move on to Billy K5CDS. What did you have to say about the black hole and the plot?
Great, thanks, Virginia. Yeah, I kind of felt like Tony did. I just felt a little let down at the end. I was wanting more. Even as a kid, I was highly entertained by all the action and the robots and the humor and things like that. And then the seriousness, Maximilian, did scare me. And I thought the music was really haunting too, which added to the mystery of the kind of ghost ship when they were floating over the ship, and then all of a sudden all the lights came on. I remember that was a real kind of a thrilling, scary moment. But it actually piqued my interest about black holes. This was actually the first time I'd ever heard of the concept of a black hole. So even though I wasn't thoroughly bowled over with the movie, I just remember with all the action and building up to it that it just kind of got overhyped. I remember as a kid thinking, whispering to my mom in the theater, when are they going to get to the black hole? I want to see the black hole. I was so jazzed about the black hole that when they finally got to it and kind of did their thing, the mysterious going through and all that, I was just kind of I don't know, it just really didn't bowl me over. So, and it was really, I was like, where did they end up? What does this mean? So it raised more questions than answered any, but it did pique my curiosity in black holes. And being that it was like, I looked at the runtime, it said it was like an hour and 38 minutes. That's pretty typical for a Disney PG movie, hour and a half. So there's not a whole lot you can go into, especially if you're trying to make it a PG movie and you want to appeal to all ages. There's only so much you can do with the mystery and the dark themes that are running through that film, because you can't make them too dark or else you're going to lose that PG rating. So it was a hard line to try to toe, I think, back in the day, and especially like others had mentioned with other movies that were really pushing the envelope with special effects and things, although I did look up and they did have 2 Oscar nominations. One was for Best Cinematography and one was for Best Special Effects. So for the times, I think they were, cutting edge there. So the special effects were enough to hold you. I remember as a kid, but I'm with Bill also about the random fireballs just flowing through there. It's like, where did that come from? That did just seem kind of random and weird. But all in all, I think the characters and the story, they tried to drive it, but then when they got to the end, the black hole was built up so much that it didn't live up to its own expectation. But overall, it was entertaining, but and like I said, I've seen it probably twice since 1979 and not recently. So I think it would bear going back to watch it just to kind of get another beat on it, especially as an adult, watching it after seeing decades of other sci-fi and how things have played out. Where does it measure up nowadays? I'd be interested to see where I would place it in my own spectrum of sci-fi-ness. So anyway, I'll return it to you. This is KF5TDS, back to net.
Okay, thank you, Billy. You're kind of echoing what a lot of people are saying about this one. Okay, so before I give my comments, is there anyone else who would like to join us for the Afterglow to get into round 1 about the black hole? If you would like to check in, please come now with your call sign, your name, and whether or not you saw the black hole from 1979.
Kilo Bravo 90 Oscar Kilo, Sean Fort Worth. Yes, I have seen this film.
Okay, KB9, that's okay. Sean, I had a feeling that you might show up, so tell us what you thought about the plot of the black hole.
Yeah, this is KB9, that's okay. I actually hadn't watched this film since I was a kid, actually. So it's kind of interesting. I was kind of glad we decided to watch this because I'd actually forgotten a lot of it. I remember going to see it in the theater. I remember parts of it, just didn't remember all of it. And kind of remembered why this wasn't something I repeated and watched again. Now, as a kid, I actually don't really remember minding it. I don't remember it making me scared, or the scenes didn't really bother me. I think the overall, I know everybody's kind of, talked about all the plot holes, and there are plot holes, but if you kind of look at it a different way, look at it as purely fantasy. If you look at it as realistic science fiction, it's not that, obviously. It's clearly a lot of, obviously the whole build to enter in the black hole and all that is obviously just purely fantasy. But then again, so is Star Wars in reality. And no one takes that seriously. So you got to kind of look at this film, I think, in that same light, that you can't take the science part of that seriously. And if you do that, I think the movie becomes more enjoyable. Because you really are just looking at it as kind of this, action kind of film. So I in that regard, not that I really, I ain't saying this is a great movie, but I think it makes it more enjoyable. And I think it compared to some of the other Afterglow movies we watched, it's actually not bad. It was interesting watching it again. So, I think the overall concept wasn't horrible. You've got, scientists researching a black hole, looking for if there's any way to possibly enter it and explore it. So I actually kind of liked that. And I did like the fact that they made some effort in some places to make it feel realistic with the weightlessness and, obviously with the
the original ship that we've seen the original heroes in. And just as a side note, I really don't mind when, yeah, it is a little ridiculous that all the heroes escaped, without a scratch, but, I kind of like those old movies where the good guys win, the bad guys lose. So that didn't bother me. Yeah, it's unrealistic, but just kind of a fun movie. So yeah, I actually really didn't mind this one. I thought it was okay. Yeah, it's not the strongest one we've seen, but I think it's still somewhat interesting. Yeah, it could have been greatly improved, but all in all, still okay. It kind of, Bill brought up about underrated movies. I'm not sure if this one quite falls into that, but I know another movie I just seen a review on. I'm just going to throw it out there. This will probably make our leader particularly cringing because it's another Disney movie. But they actually consider the most underrated science fiction film of all time is The Rocketeer. So I'm going to throw that out there that we should watch that one in the future. Anyway, I will send it back to that. Thanks, KV9SOK.
Okay, thank you, Sean. I appreciate your point of view on this. And mine is similar. I saw this when I was a kid. I was 7 years old. We went to see it probably at Christmas time, and I remember loving it. I was, not savvy about space science because I was so young, and I had loved Star Wars, and I loved robots and adventure, and so I couldn't really critique it in any, scientific way. But it had a little bit of everything. It had some humor. It had some pathos. It had distinct good and evil, very, very stereotypical, typical archetypal characters. But as an adult, seeing it, I kind of rediscovered it. We saw it on HBO and that when I was a kid and when I was older, and then I rediscovered it when I was in college with one of my college friends who loves anything space, and we watched it, and we made fun of it and enjoyed it at the same time, and then I have watched it a few times since. I own a copy of it. I own the novel that is based on it. But I can objectively see that it kind of got a balancing act that it was trying to do, and that people say, oh, well, it had bad guys, it had really dark stuff, and it had really funny stuff, and it couldn't decide what it was. But you could say that about Star Wars. It's just that Star Wars balanced all that so much better. It had a really scary bad guy. It had people having people with their arms getting cut off. It had planets exploding where millions of voices suddenly cried out and then were silenced. It had the Death Star. It was going to blow other stuff up. It had people, aunt and uncle being burned to a crisp. Star Wars was, it had a lot of crazy stuff, scary stuff. It had funny stuff. It had robots, action, laser beams. And the problem, I guess, that they were trying to balance here was maybe just the science. It was trying to be science fiction. I don't think Star Wars is science fiction. It's science fantasy, but it's in space, so everybody calls it science fiction. And Lucas was very inspired by things like 2001, which had a big effect on the quality of Star Wars and some of the visual look of some of the spacecraft, docking bays, and all these, very subtle things. But I think that the problem with the black hole in the plot is balance. And then the fact that it was Disney, and people did kind of freak out that it was a Disney movie that was so dark. But it had mystery. It had the drone guys that we weren't sure what they were. It had them, one guy was limping, the others were having a funeral. It had the mad scientist gone crazy, and kind of taking over the ship and pretending like the crew. It had all kinds of great elements in it, but it just didn't quite make them consistent enough in some ways. It didn't strike the same balance, and in the good and evil in the plot, but I think it was going for, unlike something like 2001, it was more like Star Wars. It was going straight for, this is good, this is evil, and at the end you even have the evil that was beget by evil. You've got Reinhardt's crony robot Maximilian kind of taking over and, becoming evil in and of himself, and then them sort of, evil kind of coming to roost, and them ending up in, the Inferno, which that was actually what I've pictured in my mind as what hell looks like ever since I was a kid, ever since I saw this movie. And then you have, the good guys going through and finding, peace and light and beauty, and, the ending isn't clear, but it makes it like, hey, the implication by the music and the fact that they've made it through, that they're going to find some kind of a future on the other side, and that Reinhardt at the end was right, but he didn't understand that the black hole was some fundamental, representation of, the nature of the universe, good and evil, black and white, yin and yang, all that stuff, So I think there was a lot of, just sort of fundamental, fundamental stuff here that Disney was typical of doing. They were, a very, at that point, a very conservative studio. And they were, chosen in the end to represent, to just kind of reset and go, these guys are the good guys, these are the bad guys. It seems like there's no heroes, only survivors, but the good guys end up, they end up being rewarded, and the bad guys end up being punished. And it reminds me of kind of like Night on Bald Mountain from Fantasia. You've got the ride, it's scary and dark and weird, and for some reason when they're far away from the black hole, it's all blue and purple and kind of pleasant looking, and then when they get into it, it turns like hellfire and brimstone, like red and orange. It's kind of weird. It's not black at all. That's what I thought was funny about the black hole. The Bob and Vincent, this is more character, so I won't go into this too much, but they definitely try to have the Disney comic relief, cartoony. This is for the little kids who may not be understanding what's going on at all, but let's just give them something. Let's give them laser battles and cute robots. They'll think they're just watching another Star Wars movie. So this is my final note on the plot after what Brenda said about Slim Pickens, and she made the Dr. Strangelove reference. It would be funny to do a parody of the end of this where what if the robot Bob was actually pretending to die so that he could actually jump on the outside of the probe ship and ride it like Major Kong in Strangelove? So anyway, that would have been really funny. Anyway, I need to talk fast because we got a lot of people and we got another round to get through. So let's get on with round 2. I'm Virginia in D5S, your guide for Afterglow Movies this week, and let's go back around to number 1, Thomas KI5JCM. Do you have anything to say about the acting and characterization in The Black Hole?
KI5JCM. Not a heck of a lot to say. This was kind of in that little transitionary band where Disney was going from movies like The Scarecrow and all the ones from the 60s, that acting school, to the more modern. No one's going to win an Oscar for it, but I didn't mind it that much. I thought the villain or the guy that played the German villain did a pretty good job. Other than that, not a whole lot of thoughts. I mean, this was kind of the start of Disney's traumatizing young children in the name of entertainment. I mean, I think that you can tell a certain generation if the phrase "Artax" makes us all kind of weep a little inside. Other than that, not much more to share. KI5JCM, back to net control.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. And what you just said about Disney traumatizing. I actually read something really interesting this morning. I'm going to push back a little bit. I was reading an interview with Stanley Kubrick, of all people, and he was talking about how he thought that that he had taken his daughters to see Mary Poppins. He had seen it several times because of them, and he was talking about how he quite liked it and thought it was a lovely film and a great film for children, but that he took issue with a lot of Disney's children's movies because they were so traumatic. Well, Mary Poppins came out in 1964, so he was referring to all of the stuff before it, and he particularly cited Bambi, and it was really funny to listen to Stanley Kubrick, who's like so brilliant at incisively getting to the depths of trauma and all that related stuff in the human psyche in his movies, but he was so staunch about how he thought a lot of children's movies, and particularly Disney children's movies, were really hard on children. So interesting. Anyway, just thought of that. Hi, BB, give me some on acting and characterization in B5M.
Okay, Virginia, this is Inside BB. Well, I agree that Max Schell, the actor that played the villain, he did a pretty good job. He was definitely villainous. The other actors largely were kind of bland. You know, I didn't really. Did we really connect with any of them? I don't think so. You didn't learn much about them. You saw only a slight relationship between them. The woman and Kate and one of the other astronauts seemed to have some kind of slight relationship where they kind of hugged each other at one point, but it never got very clear. So the one thing that bothered me a bit was Anthony Perkins. You know, he plays these characters, and he's always a little loopy. And it seems like he's got something going on, you know, that you can't really connect with. There's some kind of hidden thing going on in his character. So in this movie, it's like, well, is he going to be on the crazy guy's side, and is he going to sabotage the good guys? Is he going to go with the crazy guy? What is he going to do? You're not really sure. And so it's that, you know, the way his acting comes across, it's a little bit kind of 50-50. It's like you don't really, it's kind of hard to read him, to me. It seems untrustworthy, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of the way he acts, but to me it's a little annoying. Ernest Borgnine sometimes can play just a sweet character. In this case, he played more of the rough and tough, kind of difficult guy that you can't always trust. It'll go behind your back and has his own personal motives at heart, which was a bit annoying, but I guess it was written that way. I'm sure they cast it for him. I mean, it's very obvious that he could not, he only fits in this movie in that character, I think. I guess characterization and acting, the two robots, the Roddy McDowell little robot and the one with Slim Pickens that was damaged, had the goofy look and the goofy voice. You know, I guess they did a good job in doing that, but it bothered me after a while, listening to the differences in their voices, it was a little bit, over the top, okay? I kind of wanted them to be some more just computers rather than these very obviously differently sounding characters. It also bothered me that they made him so human-like, anthropic. So they had the little top that went up and down with their eyes that can kind of hide or come up and look around. Even though they were fit, they were like painted on, they could still kind of rotate them around. And of course, they had a very human, whiny voice. And although all that, I guess, was done pretty well, to me, it was annoying after a while. It's like, oh, come on, make it end. Make it end. It's a little like the Star Trek with the robots that are different from each other, that are kind of pulling each other and whining on each other. I just got tired of it after a while. Let's see, what else? I guess that's it. And somebody marked earlier, near the end of the movie, I thought they were descending into hell, and then they were coming through this long tunnel. Does this remind you of the star of the 2001 series in near Jupiter? This long kind of tunnel thing, view and thing. They go through this tunnel, and they come out in some paradise. And I don't know, I think they were purposely trying to put heaven and hell in there. And I thought that was over the top and unnecessary. In 5DB.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Next we have Tony. What do you think about characters and acting and stuff in D5?
Well, I'll try to keep it short. I thought the ship, the Cygnus, was a great character. It's the only spaceship I've ever seen that was clearly designed by a landscape architect. It's full of just big, empty, wasteful spaces that serve a very dubious purpose, except just to make the ship look empty and ominous and dark and surprisingly claustrophobic despite its enormous size. So the ship was a good character. Most of the humans, yeah, Ernest Borgnine and Max Schnell were kind of memorable. Everybody else, forgot about them, didn't care. The worst character, though, so many of those robots were awful. Clunky, shambolic, moving at about 2 miles an hour, acting like stereotypical robots who can't walk diagonally. They can only seem to make 90-degree turns. So many of those robots were just loathsome. C-3PO was vastly better, let me tell you. Even R2-D2, that was such a great pair. So yeah, that bad. But the great missing thing with round 2 here is there's a character-driven prequel movie or novel that is missing. I mean, at some point, the captain of the ship has to be like making his lobotomy machine, or maybe he's tricked his subordinates into making it. What's it like when you've got the first 10 crew people turned into zombies and the rest of the crew are like, we don't want to be zombies? The way in which he, I guess, outwitted everyone else on the ship to eventually enslave them would be a fascinating story that would require a really good writer, not anyone who worked in this movie, and would be a lot more interesting and character-driven than the movie we actually saw. NT5T, I'm back to net.
All right, thanks, Tony. Those are some interesting observations, and one does wonder how he got away with that. Okay, Tom, KU5ICX, what do you think about acting and characterization?
Well, I'm all for both. Acting and characterization would be wonderful, both of which were missing in this film. Ernest Borgnine playing Ernest Borgnine with his smiley, teethy thing that he always does in everything that he does. And that was fine and dandy, and we've seen him in several films that weren't even as good as this one, and that's saying something. And just being here in a sport nine, so he was fine. I liked Tony's comment about the lobotomizing the crew. I couldn't agree more. What did he do? We're going to lunch, Bob. Let's go to lunch, Bob. And Bob comes back, and they see Bob's kind of like drooling, and Bob, you don't seem all that animated after you went in to go see the boss and get your performance review. Bob, are you okay, Bob? And the next time they go to lunch, two of them are that way. And, you know, they're wearing hard hats and they're staring at one another into space and nothing's happening. And this is a dead-end job. It's just the way it is. So maybe that would have been a better movie. Maybe they should have done it as a comedy. It would have been more fun. So, no, the rest of the characters, the Palomino crew, nobody cares. I didn't care. I was hoping they'd get blown up early in the film so I could be spared the whole plot. But, oh well. At any rate, I don't know. And I'm just going to say this because I kind of fell asleep there for a second. Is the final special effects going through the black hole and the spinning around and that disco ball thing was really kind of weird too. With the characters, looks like they were on a roller coaster, and then they really were on a roller coaster. This movie made no sense. Back to you, KE5ICX.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Brenda, what do you have to say about the acting and characterization in The Black Hole?
This is W5FC. Well, there was a lot of black and white, you know, good guys or bad guys, no in between, not very complex characters. One thing I will say, we didn't have any female bimbos in this, so I appreciated that. I had Yvette Mimieux, who was, you know, she was a little past her prime here, but in her day she was beautiful and you know, a little starlet. But we didn't have women wearing, you know, ridiculously tight clothes and high heels and, you know, what we often see in these things, which totally impractical space gear. All right, we are really running out of time, so I'm going to cut it short. WB5OZL, back to net.
All right, thanks, Brenda. Let's hear from Bill, W5BLT, acting and characterization in The Black Hole.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep it short, too, because Elvis is going to leave the building, but I'll combine two. The character of Reinhardt, they were actually basing that on some German scientists they had in mind that were out of Nazi Germany after the World War II that escaped during Operation Paperclip. At least that's what one of the reviews I watched. I guess one of the persons who worked on the film commented on that. I'm going to mispronounce the name, Ron, the father of rocket science. So that was kind of a swipe at the German scientists being smuggled out. They had that in mind. He was a good character. I mean, the guy who played it did a great job. You know, obviously the Black Hole, that's my favorite character. But the one other thing as well, Disney created their own like camera technology and stuff to do this film. And so that was, I thought was interesting. The other thing too, because I don't know if I have time for the third round, but the music, I love the music. That was probably the best part of this whole thing, was the theme song. W5BLT, back to net control.
Okay, thanks, Bill. And I will give people a chance to chime in for round 3. I don't mind going a little over time. but we won't do a full round 3 for sure. Jay, in the interest of time, since you haven't seen this recently, I'm going to let you take a pass on this round. You can chime in at the very end. I'm not trying to discount you, but we are a little tight here. So, and let's skip all the way up to Billy, KF5PDS, acting and characterization in the black hole. What do you think?
Well, I'll go as quickly as I can. Thanks, Virginia. Maximilian Schell by far was the most compelling character in the whole thing. And he has just a very foreboding presence, so he was perfect for that role. And he did play later in Deep Impact. He played Jenny Lerner's dad, Jason Lerner, so it was good to see him resurface in another sci-fi film a few decades down the road. But I think by far his was the most utilized talent. And Ernest Borgnine is awesome, humorous character actor. And beyond that, the others, it was just a waste of talent. Yvette Mimieux had been great in The Time Machine. As Brenda mentioned back in the day, she was a very striking young beauty and played Weena. And then they had Anthony Perkins, who was, brilliant in Psycho. And other actors like Joseph Bottoms. You have all these great actors with wonderful range, but very limited. It could be a thing of, when good actors get into bad writing, so they're just underutilized. So I just think the characterization beyond Dr. Hans Reinhardt was the most best utilized characterization in the whole film, and everybody else was, like other people have said, were just very bland and very, nondescript, nothing really to root for or support or feel one way or another. Is this very indifferent characterization aside from his. And agreeing with the other commenter about the music, that was also one of the most compelling things about the film. The opening overture was very haunting and striking, and still I can hear it in my mind to this day, so things like that stick with you. So, yeah, not a lot of good characterization here. I think more could have been done if it had been a longer film or was, again, a different rating than PG. They could have explored more things and delved more into some of the backstory. And I agree, it would have been great to have a prequel movie come out at some point, to show how they got to where they got to. So anyway, with that, I'll return it to you. This is Back to Net, KFI-PDS, Back to Net.
Okay, thanks, Billy. Sounds like you covered some of your round 3 remarks there as well. So we'll go to Sean, KD9SOK, acting, characterization, anything else you want to say in V5F?
Yeah, this is KD9SOK. I think everybody's pretty well said it. Obviously, Max there was, as everybody said, the most interesting probably character. But I had to laugh a little bit because he kind of reminded me of a Bond villain, kind of that over the top, had to turn the people into robotics or cyborgs. But yeah, no, that was probably the most interesting character. The rest of them were pretty forgettable. Not a whole lot there in depth. Personally, I enjoyed the little robots. Vincent and Bob. I know that wasn't everybody's favorite, but being a fan of robots as a kid and even trying to build my own R2-D2 still to this day, yes, I like little cute robots, and I'll admit it. So I actually like that part. The acting was just okay as what they had to work with overall. Not a whole lot to add on this round. Since you're running short, I'll send it back to Net. This is KB9SOK.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Good remarks, and I will try to make mine quick. I have a few things to say, and I will unkey here in a little while because I know Elvis is about to take off. So, anyway, my overall take on the acting and characterization is it was somehow for the time, old-fashioned. Disney still did things in an old-fashioned way. They kind of had old-fashioned. We were talking about this last Friday. Last night they seem to use old school film stocks, old school lighting techniques, old school directing techniques, and the acting all seemed a little bit like it was about a decade behind. It was even maybe all the way back to mid-'60s by the standard of things like 2001. And even 2001 had a little bit of that. It still had a little bit of that 60s old, more classic feel. And it was sort of like old-fashioned acting meets Space 1999. It had an attempt at being sort of this, it's a space movie where all, steely-eyed astronauts who are, in control of all our faculties. And the Maximilian Schell is a wonderful actor. I thought his character would have been more interesting if he hadn't been so just, bold-faced evil. He didn't have any kind of range at all. He was just, sociopathically evil. I think he would have been a little more interesting. I mean, with Anthony Perkins, like what Bill N5BB talked about, he was kind of a wild card, and that was the point. And I thought some of these stereotypes of these characters were workable. They were things you could use. Like, Kate had an interest in this because her father had been on the flight, the original flight. Ernest Borgnine was a journalist, and he was a little self-absorbed about whether he was going to get the story, and he was good at investigating things, and he was suspicious, and the captain was, a good, solid guy, and then there was Charlie Pizer, who was like the almost Han Solo type character. He was kind of a little crazy. Maximilian, the robot, was kind of an embodiment of the evil. He just was an extension of Dr. Reinhardt's evil, and he was kind of scary. When I was a kid, he was like the Darth Vader of this movie. He was super scary. He had that red light instead of eyes, and he was very, very, I think, well drawn as far as being an embodiment of kind of what was scary about Dr. Reinhardt. And I, like Sean, I loved Bob and Vincent. I loved R2-D2 and C-3PO a couple of years before this, and I loved Bob and Vincent. And Bob was kind of cheesy, he had the old Western Slim Pickens voice, but and they were a little on the cartoony side. They probably could have been done a little less cartoony, and they would have been maybe a little more believable, like R2-D2 and C-3PO. But the opening lines of this, where the ship is flying through space and you hear Roddy McDowell as Vincent giving his sort of log entry, that voice was so well done. It really had that, it sounded like a robot or a computer. You weren't sure because you couldn't see him until they cut to the inside of the ship. But I found that opening little bit there very promising. Like, oh, this movie's going to be really cool. It's so scientific and spacey, and we got this neat spaceship and all the stars, the star field and all that. But I really liked Bob and Vincent, and I have a really soft spot for them. So anyway, those are my things about characterization and acting, and I thought there were some cutting edge effects in this, and some decent effects work, visual effects and special effects work. I thought the sets looked bland and cardboardy color-wise. Everything was kind of bland, and the inside of the ship, like Tony said, it was just too big. It was too much of a cave or a tube.
W5FC.
And I thought that a lot of it just looked cheap, and it seems like they spent a lot of their budget on specific things in the production, and a lot of it just kind of was sort of whatever we can get. It just seemed very, very nondescript and not very well done as far. And then, like I said, lighting and cinematography. I don't know why this got a nomination for cinematography. I did not find it to be terribly interesting photography-wise. So anyway, since we are so over time, I'm going to cut myself off there and say, does anyone have any sort of remarks, round 3 remarks, parting shots for the black hole? Please come now with your call sign.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo on Echolink.
Whiskey 5, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato.
Okay, I've got both bills, so we will begin with N5BB. What have you got?
Thanks, Virginia. This is N5BB. I've shut down the RF radio and moved to Echolink so I can move across the house to my bedroom. The one thing I wonder is they did an amazing job, I thought, with special effects on the little small robots. The ones that the little spherical ones that were floating around. Number one, in that other universe, in the movie universe, how are they supposed to have been elevating themselves? It's like they were anti-gravity. They were floating around. How did they do that? I mean, how would they do that in reality? And how did they do that for the movie? It was very, very realistic. I mean, they were rotating around in crazy ways. The tops were going up and down and everything. And they were rotating around as they were shooting lasers and things. And to me, the best special effects were those. Now, I will say that I thought there were just too many laser shots. There were too many laser firings. Where did they get the power for all these lasers? Why were they going over and having to replace their batteries every 10 minutes? They were firing lasers just willy-nilly. So the people did the laser work, the special effects people, that's where they spent all the money, that's where they spent all the time. That and the little robots that rotated around. I really thought that was amazing, and I'd love to hear how they did that. You know, was it on wires or was it on matte, on the blue screen? I guess it maybe was blue screen, but whatever they did, I thought it was amazing. That's all I got. N5BB.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Well, this to me illustrates the balance issue in this movie. You've got the hard science fiction versus the fantasy. Nobody worried about how they fired so many lasers in Star Wars. No one has ever criticized Star Wars for that, but since this is attempting to have some kind of scientific or physics-based reality to it, you're thinking about, well, where do they get all those lasers and how do they keep working? So, I don't know. I think you're being a little rough on them about the lasers. I think most of the anti-gravity stuff for all of this movie was done on wires, and I thought some of the wire work in this was great. They kind of took a page out of Stanley Kubrick's book for 2001. A lot of his wire work would be shot from directly beneath so that there's no way you could see the wires because they're literally going straight up from the camera, so the character is between the camera and the wires. This movie used the trick of literally turning the whole set upside down, so all the wires, when you finally saw the final thing, when it's turned right side up, you wouldn't be looking for the wires because they would all be coming from underneath the characters, going down instead of up. So I thought they did a really good job with the wire work in this. The anti-gravity stuff was I think really, really nicely done in this movie. Okay, next we have Bill, W5BLT. What are your parting shots for the black hole?
Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting, Disney really wanted this movie to sell merchandise. I guess at some of the movie theaters at the time this was released, you could get a black hole t-shirt. And they had lots of toys of the action figures, which according to some of the reviews I watched were very well done and was very realistic. Unfortunately for Disney, because of the disappointing ending. It didn't take off with kids like they thought, and the toys didn't sell. It ended up kind of being shoved away, but they are a commodity among collectors who seek out the action figures and the toys from the movie, the play sets and stuff. So they were hoping to capitalize on the toys from Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica, but anyway, movies like that, it didn't pan out for them. But I thought it was interesting. That's all I got. W5BLT.
Okay, thanks, Bill. You make a really good point, and I think that is a really good way to summarize the problem with this movie. The thing that's going to make kids want toys is when they get to the movie, the end of the movie, and they feel like there's some kind of hope that their favorite characters from the movie have a future for them to live out in their imaginations. And the way they do that is they get the toys and they play, they play Star Wars or they play, Black Hole or Battlestar Galactica. They continue the adventure in their own imaginations. And the way this movie ended did not really leave a lot of room for that feeling of, hey, I love these people. I want to see what their future is like. Let me get these toys. And, keep that whole thing alive, keep that feeling alive. There wasn't much of a feeling left to kind of keep alive after this. So, that's a really good point about the toys. Okay, thanks everybody. We have had a kind of record group. We had 11 check-ins for this Afterglow. And I'm glad everybody had a lot to say about the black hole. We are definitely out of time. Tom, if you are still with us, would you like to tell us about next week's movie in V5F?
If anybody's noticed, the Facebook page got wiped. Something happened to my account, and I'm trying to get it back, and every post I've ever made since 2017 has been completely removed from Facebook. So all the movies got wiped out. But I thought I'm going to need one for tonight, so I picked a movie. Everybody ready? Write this down. Next week's movie is called The Black Hole. Only this one is from 2016 and stars Malcolm McDowell. That's right. It's also known as Quantum Voyage. The story goes, the sci-fi thriller is centered on a high school violinist who witnesses the collapse of space and time. Andy Carver's world is turned curiouser and curiouser as space and time seem to be collapsing all around her. So a different black hole. Maybe it's the same one. I don't know. I think this one got reasonably good reviews. It's got Malcolm McDowell in it, so how bad could it be? Back to you, KE5, ICS.
Okay, thanks, Tom. That's a fun reversal for us. We've got another black hole with another McDowell. I think it's spelled differently, which is also a tenuous connection to 2001, the Stanley Kubrick, and also a connection to the movie Time After Time, which was pretty good. Okay, everybody have a wonderful Memorial Day and a wonderful rest of your weekend. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next week on the Afterglow for The Black Hole 2016. And everybody have a good night and a better tomorrow. This is Virginia, NV5F, returning this repeater to normal amateur use. Good night, everyone. 7-3, NV5F.
Thanks for doing a great job, Virginia. Enjoyed it a lot, KI5, JC.
My pleasure, Thomas. And with 11 check-ins for the Black Hole 1979, I feel like a roaring success this evening. All right, I got to go to bed because I have a bagpipe gig in the morning in D5F clear.
MCOM